Okay, we'll tell you.
We gotta just stop giggling.
Okay. Elizabeth Melbeck here. And Dr. Devin. And we're going to start off referencing one of the chapters within this book that I wrote, Get Paid and Get Laid. Because in this book, I bring up how, the mask mandates pretty much were like the equivalent of getting choked out during sex. Yeah, people asked for it, but did they really want it? Yeah. When all their friends were doing it, they're like, I like this and I choose it. As soon as the mandates were done, though, they came off, didn't they?
Yeah, they came off.
All of a sudden, this thing that they did that they really liked, not so useful anymore.
It's gone.
So let's jump into it. So what direction are we taking today's conversation?
Oh man, well, I think our title gives it away a little bit. I think we should be talking about the things that have definitely become normalized in today's society, which is all about me and my happiness and my needs. And so, as it states, whips, chains, and choking. This is a real life conversation we should be having about what it means when somebody whom you love says, but I need this element to get to this level for my pleasure, and what that does psychologically, emotionally, spiritually for their partner. Yeah. So let's do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about, because is this something you have experienced through your professional career of being an exotic dancer, and then going into addiction with alcohol and the spiral that kind of took place with that?
I will say I haven't had, thankfully, by the grace of God, much, when I'm thinking specifically like whips, chains, and choking, that is not something that I myself have personally experienced, like reaching a pleasure point and at the gains of somebody else's pain. No, personally I haven't. I do know that I'm thinking about outwardly, like, what it means to suffice somebody else's pleasure center. For instance, let's go into exotic dancing and what the atmosphere, presents to their patrons that are coming in. So if you're coming into an environment where, first off, women are nude and they're exposing themselves, there's already an element of like this sense of control that the man has, that first off, he could be allowed to see you naked, but more importantly,
and not earn it, right?
And not earn it. Like it's meant to be for your partner and partner alone. So and then the way that they speak to you, I would say that speaking and through those mannerisms, I saw a lot of. So
what do you mean?
Like for instance, if somebody was to conversate, in that environment and say, I would love to visit with you. Well, then you start to visit with that individual and it starts out great. And then all of a sudden it just can go completely in a different direction. Maybe they're asking you to do things that are not part of what's offered in that atmosphere, or starting to dig into your personal life starting to dig into your personal life. And so the pushing of the envelope was a big part of that atmosphere, that as a individual in the exotic dancer position, you had to hold your ground and say, no, these are the rules, just even being posed those type of questions and wanting to go beyond rules is what really was demeaning, and it was just a start, because now we've opened up an environment where men feel powerful and are encouraged that they're in power, they're in control.
Without being strong, right?
Yes, yes. They are utilizing money as a form of saying, but I can say or do whatever I want because I'm strong.
I have this thing.
I have this money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I've never been to a strip club before.
Okay.
The whole idea of I'm just too cheap.
That's a good cheap.
That's a good cheap. I had friends that would go and they're like, you want to go? I'm like, no, I'm good. Nope, it didn't seem like
I like my money.
Yeah, I like my money.
And my marriage.
And before I met my wife, I never thought I would get married.
Oh.
Because I grew up like in a trailer in Snohomish, like poor, didn't have dinner, poor, and so like my parents were both struggled with addiction, both legal and illegal addiction, and then they ended up divorcing, and then so it always seemed like marriage seemed like a joke to me.
Oh my goodness, I did not know this.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because it was like this thing of like, oh, we're gonna stand in front of all these people and we're gonna make a pretend promise that over half of the people don't keep, and then it's like this whole like, you know, like fancy lie, and I never thought that I would participate in that lie.
Wow, and then you found Chelsea.
Well,
so
then I
you
found
can't,
Chelsea.
you can't.
Well, and you know, when initially, you know, I met Chelsea, my brother married her older sister, and
So your brother-in-law is your brother-in-law. Wait.
my sister-in-law is Chelsea's sister, and my brother is Chelsea's brother-in-law. Yeah, so we met
my gosh.
at their wedding, and so
Oh.
because my brother was in the military, and then just all of a sudden one day he comes home and he's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I'm like, I don't know, I got a party. And he's like, you want to be in the wedding? And it's actually great. So I get partnered up with Chelsea. And so I'm such a douchebag though. I mean, because I am, you know, 19. I work construction. I do mixed martial arts 2 hours a day religiously. I am chiseled and I am confident. I have my ripped off t-shirts and so I end up being partnered up with Chelsea, who's just as gorgeous now as she was then.
Yeah.
And the very first thing, I get partnered up with her and we're like walking down the aisle. And the very first thing I said to her ever was, we look good together. And so she says that she thought I was just a douchebag, which she would use a different word, but that's basically it. But I really, really.
I mean, you were 19 too. Let's be honest.
I don't know if a lot's changed.
19. Well, let's talk about it. No, let's not talk about it. But you know, men's brains development, and you're 19 years old, so your focus is on like, we look good.
We look good together.
Does our heart sing?
I mean, that's my heart was. My heart was mixed. My energy was in different places. Right?
Yes.
And so, in fact, I actually met my brother that night, and he's like, "Hey, what do you think of Chelsea?" And I was like, "Oh, she's really pretty." And he goes, "Don't even bother, Devin." He's like, because of course, what does your older brother say to his
out of your league?
His girlfriend's sister.
Oh,
you know, while they're dating through high school, and he talks about his bad brother who sold drugs, who was like this party boy, and he's like, you got no chance. She knows all about you. And so for me, I was like, challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Christian virgin girl. Yeah, we'll see about that. And so and you know, then 4 years later, married her and finally had sex with her. So I showed Dana. So don't ever make a bet with me.
You're gonna lose.
I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I think that goes full circle to the culture. Is I never thought I would get married because like I never met someone that was like, I'll keep a promise, right? And Chelsea, and again, it wasn't one of those things where it was like, you know, like, oh, I respect your values. I mean, I pushed her values, right?
Gotcha.
But she wouldn't ever budge,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And that was for me. I was like, I think that's kind of feeds into this conversation, is that her parents were like these, rock solid Christian people. Like, do not swear. They don't believe in. I mean, they're like so straight edge, and that was the standard that Chelsea held herself to, right? Good. And so, but the normal standard was, we'll see about that. We'll see about that. I'll get her turned on enough, and then we'll see. Nope.
You had to put a ring on it first.
Well, and that's the.
And then he got married.
And then we got married. And I showed him.
No, I didn't know that you didn't feel that you would ever get married, and I do. I'll be honest. I also never thought I would get married in my younger years because there was so much chaos, and I knew I was unhealthy as an individual. So I couldn't come together with somebody else that as a healthy partner. But I'll say it, I'm 39 years old and I just got engaged for I'm going to be married for my first time ever. And I do think it's important to note, like you've already mentioned, I did come from a divorced set of parents, and you know, all the things that happen with that through divorce and the relationships and the everything. It was so it's just a proven point that even if we think outwardly that something in our childhood or some trauma in our childhood doesn't affect us,
it becomes normalized.
It's because it is already at that point somewhat normalized. And so, divorce, I'm not to sit here and say that divorce is terrible and you should never do it. But at the end of the day, I witnessed divorce, remarriage, those things. Yep. And so I doubted my own ability in being, and my mom has shared with me. She said, I'm worried that you're holding out because of things you've seen in your past, and don't do that. And so let's be honest, it was things that happened in my past that held me back from thinking that I could have a healthy, beautiful marriage.
Which then, makes the whole idea of being an exotic dancer is like not a big deal, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And yep, not a big deal. I think even more to that is I knew at a young age that it would be very difficult for me to have children. And so I'm thinking about, now you're bringing that up, that's like marriage, children, all those things. Like I was accepting and walking into the exotic dancer environment because marriage and creating a beautiful relationship with somebody wasn't at the forefront of my priorities.
Your body was a tool and you were going to use it.
My body was a tool. Thank you for saying that, because that truly is what it became. It was a tool to make money. It was the tool to draw, at that time in my life. And plus, when I was drinking, the adrenaline and the endorphins and everything that comes with drinking and that environment, it kept getting heightened so much that what we consider normal everyday life became boring and bland to me. Yeah. Let's talk about that, because it freaks me out to think that at one point in my life, I was so numb to the alcohol, numb to the environment that I was consistently putting myself in, that I actually became numb to real feelings, the things that we should be like molecularly feeling from our body, because it was all a facade from alcohol and viewings. So the environment as an exotic dancer isn't just about the where I'm going with this is, it's not just about the woman herself exposing her and that not being shouldn't be part of everyday life, but then what am I as an exotic dancer doing and inviting into my life and accepting and tolerating for actions and mannerisms from men? And then what does that do for my mentality of what I view what should be a healthy relationship? Because if I'm constantly in an environment over and over and over that is about control via money, there's nothing to say that it can't switch to control via the words that a male or female are saying. And
I can't help but now go back to the idea of like, okay, you went into this environment, like I'm using my body as a tool, and in essence, you're training men to use you like a tool.
Boom.
Right?
Yes.
And this is like the fascinating thing about the Dominican Republic. Buenos dias, Ruby. Actually, buenas tardes. They always correct me when I say that wrong. We're friends down in the DR. And the thing in the DR, it's like sexuality is open, right? Like women are wearing little bitties. And it's like, it's women that are feeling real proud about their body.
Yeah.
That maybe wouldn't feel so proud here.
Yeah.
And because it's like a voluptuousness. And so the idea that I want to reflect on is that Chelsea, she's like, like ever since moving to the DR and living there and like seeing women that are really proud and confident with their body, she's like, that actually has helped her become more confident. Because it's like if these women can feel confident, then I can feel confident.
Absolutely.
And I can't help but wonder is because it's now we've, like the whole idea and almost like, and to go to like the extreme version of like Muslims that cover women because you want to get rid of the temptation, avoid the temptation.
Yep.
It's like we're almost there a little bit. So then therefore it's when we then we have this cover up, avoid temptation, unless you're going to go into this environment where you pay to be entertained by a tool.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And now it's like this vicious cycle where women maybe don't feel confident about their body. So then they are forced to do things that when then would get attention,
Yep.
which then reinforces the cycle.
Yep.
Because when you're doing it, I mean, does it feel good? Like people are like, yeah, baby, you.
It feels more than good, and I hate to admit it, but it is the women that are in that environment. As much as if they say they don't want to be dancing or doing it, what ends up happening is you feel like an adrenaline rush.
You're wanted.
You're wanted, desired, and you feel so in tune with your body, and then
you're exercising too, right?
And yes, you're exercise. You're doing all the things to make yourself feel and look and appear good, and then you go on stage, and then you're hearing the positive feedback.
Yeah.
It just elevates it more and more, and then that becomes, I still, even, that was in 29, man, it's been almost 10 years, 11 years since I've been done dancing, and I still can go right back to that mental spot in my mind where you feel that adrenaline rush of some people just even cheering for you just to step out on stage. And that in itself is a high bar to be setting and an unhealthy one at that.
Yeah.
Because now when I go home to my significant other, let's talk about it. When I go home to my significant other, and it's just another every day for us.
You make dinner, you're not getting cheered for.
Yeah, I'm not getting cheered for making dinner or doing laundry.
So you don't get the feedback of like the normal things.
Let's be honest, but my cup has been now filled full of all the affirmations and everything that I need that I'm not even like desiring it and reaching for it from my partner, and then they themselves are going to feel a sense of neglect because where is my desire to be flirtatious? Well, I just spent a 10-hour shift. I don't want to do that anymore.
You're exhausted.
I'm exhausted. Yeah.
Well, I can't help but wonder like what feedback loops happen within the brain, because it's like kind of like I root back to the like Ivan Pavlov like conditional correlational conditioning, where they had the dog, they showed it food, the dog salivated, they rang a bell, and then they eventually got to train like an autonomic nervous system response to the bell, right? So it's like you ring a bell and the dog's mouth starts to salivate.
Yep.
So I can't help but wonder like what pairing occurs at all the time, because it's almost like a retraining rather than being filled with like regular relationships of like this is my tribe, they're all got my back, they're all supporting me, we're all contributing to each other's community, which would be like really neurologically for hundreds of thousands of years that would be what got us excited,
elevated. Yeah.
Instead it's this training of like you don't get to feel good about yourself until you're a tool. So, and I think that's where we can bring it back to the porn, right? Because this idea of like okay, now we have stimuli for men and women, right? That it's like okay, now it reinforces like okay, see this person getting treated like a tool, that's good, that's what we want. But the problem is, and this is ultimately where the leveling up has to occur, is that when we anatomically, with our substantia nigra, which produces dopamine, when you are doing things like healthy building connections with people on a natural, non-sexual level, even if it's with sexual people, that strengthens that part of the brain. So then we feel better overall, always. Right?
Okay. I'm right there with you.
So that strengthens it because it challenges it.
Okay.
Where when we passively stimulate it, it's the same as doing cocaine. Cocaine weakens our substantia nigra, which then means we feel more empty overall, and then we're looking for another hit.
Oh my gosh.
So really, let's talk about like in your experience what you see, because I'm sure you're friends with a lot of the girls that you danced with.
Yes,
like,
some are still currently.
What did you see as far as like how did the go from okay, I'm going to school, I'm going to be an exotic dancer to pay for school. And like, what did you notice as far as like the leveling up in your own life and what you noticed with other people around? And if you can think of like examples of pornography too, that would be good.
Yeah, let me think about that one. I'm going to think.
Because I can talk about that one.
I'm going to go into the dancer side of it. So when let's use me as an example as a dancer and then another dancer. So, and this isn't to say that I was some great fancy moral dancer by any means. Let's be honest. There is no morality to it. But what I am going to say is
art form, though.
It's a form of art. It's a form of art that I believe does require clothing that can still like.
We're going to agree to disagree.
We're going to agree to disagree, even though he's never been to.
Because you go to the yard, it's like they are.
It's there everywhere.
So,
yes. So when I was in the environment, I remember I had this sole purpose of why I was doing it, to pay for college. But there's other women that go into the environment that are there just to make it a career, a job, an actual, like, make good money. So what happened was I was consistently being reminding myself of why it is I was there and keeping myself somewhat grounded.
Okay.
Whereas the other individuals that would go into it,
they're going in to make money.
To make money.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So then what starts to get questioned along the way in their journey is it's always about the money and making more. Well, then there's these moral dilemmas that start to appear, like when customers are saying, I would love to pay for a private dance outside of the confines of this building where she is protected by security.
Right.
And right there, then this individual is now starting to deal with the morality and the decision making of this unsafe choice that she's making because a question was posed to her because of the desire of the client, not because she was seeking it out. So then you get faced with these constant temptations in the dancing world offers of making more money. But I was always, this is where, I'm driven to pay for college. But then I also got wrapped into, once I got done with college, I was 4 years into dancing. Remember, I went for 9. So I was there for an additional 5 years past paying for college. And why? Because I prioritized paying for college. But then once I got into it, I got used to the money, if that makes sense. And then I became...
it's great. I mean, think about it. You break it down. It's like you get paid to feel really good about yourself.
That's exactly what was happening. It was exactly, even if I was morally and like shame and guilt and all those things were going on.
You had to cope with alcohol.
Yes, I coped with that and silenced that part to continue doing this part to then obtain the money.
Right.
And so I do want to make sure that we hit on the pornography part because the main thing I wanted to separate is when you are in this environment, what we think people will never do, it then becomes more of no longer about a moral dilemma, but just about the end game.
Yes.
And I can stand proud that in my 9 years, I never, ever walked out of that job saying I went against my own personal standards. I followed the rules at the club, never let it get outside of the building. But that's the other thing, because then those dancers that did start with just the sole money desire to make money, they're now venturing out into a new atmosphere of I can make more if we're outside the confines of this wall. Now they're unsafe. Now they're potentially, literally could be causing death. Like they could get murdered. They could get their money stolen and make zero money and lose money. I mean, there's so many things. And then the ultimate part, she has now subjected herself to this kind of payment for services. And now when is the separation ever going to be between her own emotional and relationship, personal journey with her partner versus what she's now opened this new door to, which is a whole nother box in itself. And that is where it is just what do they call it? When one addiction starts and it like leads to another. And no dancer goes into a club saying, I'm gonna become a private party dancer and make thousands and thousands. No, they don't come into there with that.
Right.
They come in to make money, and then more doors open to show them more money, and that's where it gets really, really dangerous.
Yes. In like rooting back to like just the idea of what an addiction is versus not, right?
Yes.
Because I think that verbiage is like thrown around so much.
Yes.
Like, oh, okay.
Yes.
But in my mind, I like to simplify it. Anything that we do to feel better about ourselves, but ultimately then causes harm.
Yep.
That we do not repair from. So there's a non-reparation that occurs. That in my mind, that fits the best classification of addiction. Like, I do this thing, it makes me feel good about myself, and now I'm weaker because of it. And I keep doing it, so the weakness continues to grow.
Yes.
And the need for more good feelings continues to get higher, right? And I think about like and I broke my back in high school in a roll over car accident. And then I was put on, pain meds, and I began a legal drug addiction that was prescribed, and then switched over to buying weed and smoking weed. And weed pretty much is like the ultimate, like, it's way better than anything to prescribed. I mean, because pain meds, they just make you so high that you don't care enough and then crave more pain meds. Like, weed, like, numbs you out.
Yeah.
And so I ended up then being a logical person, bought, larger amounts to sell to my friends. And then this whole cascade happens where it got to the point where I'm growing, pounds and pounds of weed. And
I need to learn more about you. Like, we know each other, but there's I know.
I just gave him a book.
P.S. Stay tuned. I'm about to set out on reading this book, and I'm going to be sharing it on Facebook. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's all in here because really it's like, people see me as this straight edge Dr. Devin, right? Right? And my road is different than you look around all the people that are sitting around homeless and in abusive situations. My road could have very much been their road.
Oh yeah.
And that's the whole goal of everything we do, including these conversations, is to get people on a different road.
Yes.
Right? And it was a thing for me, like when I was sold pounds of weed. And when I remember I started going to a chiropractor, starting to regain my health and decrease pain, and eventually my chiropractor was like, when you're doing this, it actually is making your nervous system cause you more pain. So, like, if you want to keep suffering, then keep doing it. So then I discontinued it, and it was like, and all my friends were so pissed that
because they were buying from
didn't sell weed
you.
anymore. Like, and then I realized, like, all my friends
Weren't your friends?
weren't actually my friends. They were simply people caught up in the same addiction. So I can't I guess I can't imagine, because, like, for me, I was the stripper, right? I was the person giving them the thing that made them feel good.
Yep.
And as soon as I was no longer doing that, they
needed you.
No longer needed me. Yeah. And so, in essence, I almost think that, like, with pornography specifically, it's normalizing women into being a tool that is similar to, like, a drug. Right?
Absolutely.
Right? Because there's no reason that you should feel as a woman. And I have a daughter who's 11, and my wife. I want my wife and I want my daughter. I want them to feel beautiful always.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Not just when someone is sexualizing them.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
However, it's we're stuck in this vicious cycle, aren't we?
Yes, yes, and thank you. I'm so glad we're talking about pornography right now, because this has been something prevalent in my life. Again, you guys know I'm an open book, and Devin is an open book, and so here we go. This was probably about 4 years ago that I was starting to really, really struggle as I was recognizing that I was partaking in viewing free pornography that is readily available online, readily at the fingertips.
I know it's crazy. Like, kids these days, they don't even know how hard it was to get porn back in the day.
No, when we were kids, you had to find magazines under the bed. Like, there was nothing, a computer and dial-up and and by then your parents were already walking into the room.
It was way more difficult.
It was, and now it is just so readily available, and it's freaky. And so where I'm going with this is, I will be honest that my increase in viewing of pornography, I first recognized it as, I think it was starting to replace what I was so used to viewing for 9 years in the exotic dancer building. Because remember, I'm sitting around naked women and everything sexualized, the music, the lights, the movement, the everything. And so I didn't realize that pornography was a problem. It one time is just a problem, but like for me, it was starting to become, it was regular about 4 years ago, and I was single.
Was it because you were like looking, what kind of feelings does it give, like from a female? Because I feel like a male pornography use is highly talked about. Well, like as a female, like what do you get from it?
I love this because it's not for females, and for me specifically, it's not just about the sex act itself. I was actually single for so long at that point. I had been single, I think, going on 4 years at that point. And I was starting to, because I was feeling senses of loneliness, I was actually viewing the pornography and actually, this is so embarrassing to admit, but like seeing the way the man would look at the woman or the woman would look at the man.
That feedback.
The way they looked, and that it would stir up those feelings inside of me of, oh, that's what that felt like.
Wanted to be desired.
I wanted to be desired, wanted to be pursued, so my lack of relationship and the intensity of feeling lonely was pulling me back into this world where I felt that connection. And because I'm no longer in the exotic dancer industry, I immediately went to what is readily available and free, and that is pornography. And so I wasn't just trying to get an end result of like a pleasure heightened experience. It was about connecting and seeing the energy and excitement and the eroticness that I was actually missing in my life. And so I was seeking it.
Because you were addicted to being a tool.
I was addicted to being a tool. Yeah. So and I still have to be hyper aware of that. Regardless if I'm in a very, very safe relationship.
That's a strong addiction, right?
Yes.
How many years was it programmed into you?
9 years. Yeah. 9 years of just the industry itself that I was in. And that doesn't even count my own actions and the life that I experienced as a younger child and then growing up and everything. So pornography, about 4 years ago, I actually had a individual Christian in my life who said, this is not healthy. And it was a man, P.S. Like, that makes me I love that it was a man, because it was a man of God, a man of faith that said, this is not healthy. Now, that man could have had a completely different feeling and could have pushed me in a different direction, but instead, he's like, that's not healthy.
Who's that guy? Let's give him a freaking plaque.
Well, he is a full-time missionary now. So, but he is a man, and let's be honest, he's a man, I'm a woman, and he was single, and I was single, so like, he could have taken it to a whole nother direction. But instead, as a Christian, a man of faith, and a person who really didn't care about his own personal desires and had to be aware of them, very aware of them, and we talked openly about it, but like actually then encouraging me to stop looking at pornography. And then more importantly, we had a moment where toys, all the things that assume and bring upon pleasure, like we said whips, chains, and choking as like the theme, like those items aren't necessary to heighten the pleasure points. And if anything, once those things get introduced and starting to be utilized, it actually, you said it doesn't it bring down this once you give it the sensation, and then it will diminish it. And those, so I actually got rid of every toy, every movie, anything.
You're that cold turkey, like,
and I went and I'm talking about walk to the dumpster and pray while dumping it into the dumpster. I'm not kidding, because I knew that I had to break what I was considered was fine, because I wasn't harming anybody. It was just me, myself, and I. But it was actually harming me emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And I knew by breaking that, it would help me on a better path with connecting with God. And look at what happened. now two and a half years ago, I reunite with my fiance. Like, that's no coincidence that after I had a little bit of a year and a half under my belt of not looking at pornography, not having this misguided...
You could actually have a real relationship.
I could have a real relationship and not have expectations and visuals of thinking this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that's interesting is that we talk about like it's good to like make the Christian guy seem selfless, but I'm going to put a little bit different perspective on it.
Dude, please.
Because the thing is about our brain is there's a feedback loop, right? So substantia nigra that it's like driving us for security, sex, and for food.
Okay.
Right. So when someone and I don't want to minimize you right here.
No, don't go.
You have someone that's addicted to being a tool.
Yes.
Right.
He's not minimizing me. I get it.
Not minimizing.
Yeah.
And as a man, you know that.
Yes.
So now, when you have this opportunity of, for lack of a better term, of easy prey, and then you choose not to act on it in a sexual way, it actually feeds back the substantia nigra
on the
man. So the man gets more power and more energy knowing that he said no, not because he...
In a good way.
In a good way. So ultimately, even though he doesn't act on it to get the pleasure in the moment, like he feels better about his life always because of that. And that's the thing that I called this book Get Paid and Get Laid, because I would have been like, how to be a good Christian man. No one's getting that book. And let's be honest, I'm not buying that book. There's a thousand of those books. And really, it's like training people that like really like knowing that really the majority of women have been trained to be tools. Yes. And I shouldn't say majority, but it seems to be highly prevalent.
I'm a woman, and I believe it's a majority.
It seems very prevalent.
It's because women, this is not me hating on women, we have gotten so used to being toolized in the ways of trying to elevate our partner. And you need that, okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and do that for you.
And did you like it?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah. Did you like it? Like, seriously, why are we doing that to ourselves, women? Like, we have a
classic conditioning.
It's conditioning
and
people pleasing, and that's a whole nother animal. Like, I want to please and elevate my partner, so I'm gonna do whatever it takes. But that in the reality, that actually won't benefit your partner or yourself.
Correct.
Either.
Yeah, because you just weaken them.
Yes, both of us.
Yeah, both
of us. Yeah.
So really, like that guy that was like, hey, you should get rid of all the stuff and be better. It's like he got the benefit.
He got the benefit. He did. And I'm gonna be. He stood his ground, and I'm talking like waiting for marriage, like I'm serious, like this, and is it any coincidence? P.S. That man was about a year prior to that delivered from demonic activity in the depths of drug addiction. Right. Wow. 20-year master sergeant in the Marines. Like, I'm talking high end, and this is what we talked about last week, and why I was saying judges and lawyers and chiropractors. These are your highly functional, highly incredibly providing Americans that give so much to the world, but then when they themselves find themselves in the midst of addiction, for him it was once he got when he served his 20 years and got out of the military, he didn't know anything different. He was used to the structured life, this, that. And so he went in the depths of addiction with drugs and then got delivered from God. And now he's a full-time missionary. And everything that happened prior to him being delivered, it was, all the bad things that should not be happening in a person's for a healthy life. Right. That is the beauty of God. That is the beauty of God, that this man didn't have him at the center of his life, got out of the military, didn't know how to handle life on life's terms, dove into addiction, and then one day was delivered from that demonic activity. And now that man is walking this earth and blessing my life 4 years ago with saying, I don't think this pornogaphy is healthy for you, and I think you should really get rid of it. And what a blessing that man was in my life. And
that's a bold statement, because I've had like mixed people with doing this series. I'm like, why are you dogging on porn? Well, it's because I saw a personal friend of mine who and he would spend hours every day, like instead of working, instead of getting income, instead of working on his house, it's like, and it's one of those things where it's like on the root, I think there's like a scale of like, okay, here's things like that God has made, like, you know, everything that was on the earth that's natural. That's good, right? That's good. And then the further we get from that is like the further from good we are. And very early on in with our first child, with Penny, I was very much held myself to this standard, right? So, you know, wouldn't give our kids sugar. And,
yeah.
And I was that kind of person that when we went to children's birthday parties, I would not be shy about it. I'd be like, you know, we don't poison our kids. And they're like, well, it's just a little bit. It's like a little bit of sugar. And I was like, well, I actually have some cocaine in my car. I could bring that in and we can give the kids a little bit of cocaine. Since it's a little bit of cocaine, that's not a big deal, right? Just a little bit, right? So I was that person. Difficult time making friends. And
it's a valid point, though.
Right,
but
like
maybe a little extreme, but who knows? It's your kids.
You know? Well, and that's the thing. It's like the book, The Least of Us, talks about addiction is like really like all the things that feed the addiction part of our brain.
Yes.
Again, it's like over here, God created it good. Farther away, pretty much everything that we go this way starts to feed the addiction cycle.
Yes.
And once that part of the neuroanatomy is developed, the brain doesn't care from sex addiction to porn addiction to food to whatever it is.
They are.
Care, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's why people switch from one to the other, right? And so I think it takes some boldness, and I think it's boldness for you to come on and talk about this now. It took some boldness of that guy several years ago.
Yes.
Like, there's a lot of people who are like, that's just porn, not a big deal. That's just sugar, it's not a big deal. Oh, it's just alcohol, it's not a big deal. Until it isn't, right?
Right.
And I think that's really where the conversation piece could be a little bit more accepted, is that realizing that all these things have the potential to turn into this addiction.
Absolutely.
And the more they stack up, the more likely it is.
Yes.
And noticing from when having a conversation, and I love the idea of like when you have become the addiction to somebody else, of like, I want to be treated like a tool. I need this, right? And now he has a situation to call you out. Right?
Yes.
Because, and that's really where it's like, that takes a lot of strength from both people.
Yes.
It's real easy for a bunch of judgy prick Christians to go around and be like, oh, you did this and you did this. And I don't think that's where this is necessary.
No.
I think where it's necessary, and this, our conversation starting this is like really what began the conversation of like, I have an addiction to this. And then now the other person saying, I could either A, feed this addiction.
Yes.
Or we can now strengthen the relationship between it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And by openly talking about it, we're Christians.
Yes.
But we're not afraid to put our failures and struggles and everything out to say it, not from a place of telling people not to do something that we just went through ourselves, but to encourage people that you don't have to go through the same struggle that we have gone through. Addiction is part of our story. It doesn't have to be part of yours. And the things that we share, it like your example was perfect. That cake and the giving the sugar, as much as he might have used an example of extremeness to say, here, let me go get some cocaine and I'm going to, but did it work? It works. Yeah. It's because we as humans either don't change or won't start to change unless we're in complete pain or discomfort. And you're actually using extreme examples to make that example for people so it catches people's attention. And that is him saying cocaine is exactly the perfect extreme analogy that we should be using, because sugar is an addictive additive to almost everything. And when a parent like yourself, when Penny was young, are faced with a choice of that piece of cake or have a piece of fruit that's sitting there with natural sugar in it, you made the right choice to not put cocaine in your child's body.
We didn't do so good with the other kids though.
The other kids got sugar.
Callan. If one of our kids is going to be real bad, it's going to be Callan.
Callan! He's gonna watch this back someday and be like, why'd you give me the sugar?
I became a male dancer. I'm like, sorry, son. He's got the moves.
Oh man. Pornography, don't do it. It's if we think it, in my mind I kept going, what harm is it doing? I kept convincing and justifying myself. I am not harming anybody by myself sitting in this quiet, secluded room and looking at this stuff. But at the end of the day, it first off harmed me directly because of the expectations that I started to put on from the things that I had seen and start to expect that in my own relationships. But then also it will negatively affect your partner and or your relationship with your partner in the future. So,
and especially like we talked a little bit about like the idea of like the domination of like when you can start to hurt someone, that gives them an adrenaline response, which then magnifies the pleasure response, right?
Yes. Yes.
So in essence, like that's where it's how much harm is too much harm. Right?
Yes.
And with an addiction, it seems like there's always a line, right? It's like, oh well, once we get to there, well, I mean that wasn't that bad, and go to the next one. So it's like,
but it always gets pushed out more. Yeah,
right. I'm gonna
because I don't want to stop,
right?
Because it's an addiction now. So
and because I feel dead inside the rest of the time,
yeah,
right, until I do this thing, and that's really like in essence, like I think where culturally now enough people are doing it where it's like undeniable. Right?
Yeah,
it's like it is. The choking, the whipping, the S&M stuff, and I made a joke out of it about the masking and stuff because really, if you wouldn't do something and talk about it openly, unless you were made to do it, it's probably not good. Same with the masking, right? Everyone, as soon as the Democratic Party was like, put this fabric on your face, be anti-Trump, everyone's like for it. But as soon as the masks were gone, the mandates were gone, everyone unmasked.
Unmasked.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with any kind of these sexual things that are trained through porn. It's like if you wouldn't talk about it with your friends and feel good about bringing it up, and I'm not saying like, oh, you like to choke your wife, so do I. Hey, high five. Because that's like, you like cocaine, I do too, right? But if it's like, if you wouldn't feel comfortable sitting in front of a bunch of strangers and saying, this is something I think is good, then that's a whisper from some say the Holy Spirit, some say the conscience, some say it's the autonomic nervous system response trying to tell you to stop doing this, things hurting you. But really, if there is that thing, this book I wrote because I realized that this is a constant thing. In fact, I had this friend, if I could tell this story.
Absolutely. And I actually, I don't know how you are on time right now, but I do want to go a little bit further because I shared a little bit briefly with you, but to develop on the how far would you go, bondage, chains, whips, because of a show that I just was watching last night and what I saw, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to talk about this with Devin tomorrow. Please. Yes. Okay. I'm going to jump into it and then I want to talk about your friends. Yes, I want to jump back to what he was saying about what becomes normalized in the environment when even if it's with your partner, but like saying whipping and choking and inflicting a pain, even though it's a pain that may be heightening your pleasure. What I wanted to share, which was just mind-blowing to me, and Devin and I talked about it this morning, is the fact that while I was watching the show last night that had no sexual like elements or anything in it, so it came as a complete shock, there was an point where there was a man and woman, not partners, that were in a sexual room, a bedroom, and they brought in another woman, and then the man instructed his partner to do painful things to this third woman, the third party. And the girl that he was doing it to, it was actually painful, and you could see it. The girl had tears. She was visually upset. But once she got to a certain point of the pain, and then he instructed this girl to match it with pleasure, the girl that it was getting done to, all of a sudden it was more accepting because she herself felt that the pleasure actually matched now the pain that was being inflicted, whereas 5 minutes before that the pain was unbearable and she was crying. Can you explain to me what happened in that moment? Why, when she was feeling pain, it was uncomfortable until it reached that pleasure point?
Right. And this feeds back into the dopamine and the adrenaline cycle.
Okay.
Right? So we develop strength through enduring discomfort.
Okay. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we do things like running marathons and you experience a whole deep level pain, running 41 miles on my birthday. Yeah. Endurance, right?
Yes.
And so when you endure pain, then your body becomes stronger, and then it produces more of a dopamine response, so you get energy from it. Okay. So when you then, now this is a build-up cycle, because the whole time your brain's saying, why am I going? Why am I doing this? 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 Right? How many times do you say that to yourself? Walking your, the
120 times at least.
And it's like, well, I signed up. I'm committed. I'm going to do it, right? And so now inside the mind, you're conditioning the mind to choose to persevere through for the accomplishment of a thing. Okay. And then the byproduct is then strength, right?
Yes. It was hard, painful, but once you push through, you actually elevated your strength.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, pleasure comes from becoming stronger. Okay.
Okay.
So not in that moment, well, in the moment where you're done with the race, it's like, whoa, right?
Yeah.
Right? But throughout pretty much the whole painful process is not pleasant.
Not pleasant.
Pleasant.
Yep.
So so for example, in the whole like whipping and choking and beating thing with sex, like you're enduring pain.
Okay.
And now in the mind's like, pain, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Now you introduce passive pleasure.
Okay.
So you have adrenaline.
Okay.
And now you start to introduce pleasure, which is artificially stimulated through the dopamine response.
Okay.
So now what has just happened is it happens inside the brain is, why am I doing this? I'm doing this so I can then get pleasure. And the byproduct of me getting pleasure is by being hurt.
Okay.
So now
I'm there with you.
Create a feedback loop of like adrenaline, pleasure. Now I can't get pleasure unless I'm getting hurt. So then women will say, and I have friends where it's like, and then what the man says is, you like that, didn't you?
Always. Or no, I mean, not said to me, but like, that's always said in pornography. Oh, you like that? Yeah. And okay, so there's something with that.
Now the girl has to say, yes. I did.
And then what does that say to the man when he's hearing an agreement from the woman?
Right.
When in deep honesty, outside of the people-pleasing side of that woman trying to say, yes, I did. Yeah. Now she's accepted it and she's okayed it to the man.
She's encouraged it.
Yeah.
She's just encouraged it. And now men, we all want to feel powerful, right?
Yes.
So now that man just got to feel super powerful without having to get stronger, right? And so now the feedback loop for his brain, he's now gotten weaker. And this is where, again,
so makes sense.
Look at culturally, like how men have gotten weaker, right? Because they no longer have the strength of like, again, do a hard thing, get stronger, and then be the strongest to then attract a mate that's worthy of that, right?
Yeah.
And now again, it's like, and this is again not to make anyone a bad guy, is that now we just created a vicious cycle, right? I am now addicted to feeling powerful without getting stronger,
and the woman,
and you're addicted to feeling pleasure and getting
in the order that it got to that point, which included pain.
Right. Yep. And so now both people are now
supporting. Yeah. And now we're feeding each other's loops
and now you're feeding each other's loops, right? Until you find somebody else that makes you feel a different way, and now you're going to be attracted. So now, and this is the vicious cycle that we're in now, because now we do have a lot of women that are used to this loop, and if there are strength around them, they will be naturally attracted to these strong, godly men.
Yes.
And now it's like this conflict of like, and this is where I found myself in, because my friend who was addicted to pornography and he was hurting his wife. His wife was attracted to me, not in a sexual way,
right,
but in a strength
because
way.
Of comfort or peace and safe.
Yes, and again, like we all want to be stronger, right?
Yes.
And so when you have a strong man, like get rid of your toys, like no doubt, like you got pleasure from him saying, "Do this thing now." It's
I bet so.
Right.
I bet so. It was, and I'm a people pleaser.
Right.
It's something that I'm aware of myself, and it's not good. But I didn't even realize that I felt a sense of accomplishment.
He made you stronger by holding you standard because he had strength.
Yeah.
So now it's like I had this friend who was like hurting his wife, and they're stuck in this vicious cycle, right? And so I have an interaction with him because he was literally checking off all the boxes of red flags for domestic abuse. I'm like, we need to talk about this. And what he tells me is that the reason why he was hurting his wife was because that was the only way he can get control, because of this. And he would say, "Oh, you're just sleeping with your friend," and
anything to stir up
to
and
stir it up.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I didn't actually think that. I just didn't know how else to get control other than hurt my wife."
Oh.
And so now, and this is where it gets, and this is where I call out a lot of BS. Is that really, like, he was like ready for help until he went to his church, and then his church says, "Oh, no, you're just." A woman shouldn't be friends with a man because that's not the way the church is, and it's not your fault that you were hurting your wife or you have this addiction. It's that your wife really should be at home where she should be.
That is so wrong.
And then the family's like, yeah, because the thing is, again, the family doesn't want to have like, oh, my son's raping his wife. Instead, my son just is having jealousy issues because his wife,
because she's putting herself
and
out
she
there,
should be submissive at home.
Submissive.
Yeah, like herself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So, and again, it's no one's fault, right?
No.
Everyone's protecting themselves.
Yeah.
There's a vicious cycle that's happening within majority relationships, and I'm gonna hate to say majority, but it seems like it is.
And even in churches.
Yeah. And even in
churches.
Right.
I mean, and that is no dog on churches.
Yeah.
It is when there is a group think or a church starts to have their specific defined values.
Right.
And I do want to tap into this real quick because it is saddening to hear that an individual that you cared about, both the husband and the wife, and you have these conversations, and this person has openly admitted you that those things were said to his wife because that was the only way he could grab her attention and get the control of the conversation.
Right.
And he was actually admitting, I don't really believe that my wife and you are sleeping together. That happens so commonly.
Right.
So men and women will use things to manipulate and twist the situation to elevate them. And so the sad part is for that individual to not like what he had to hear and then go to his... The shame is hard. The shame is so hard.
Yeah.
And churches never want to. Churches are the last things that want to say, one of our parishioners is potentially like abusing emotionally and physically his wife. Yeah. It is not about... she needs to be submissive and be at home. It is healthy for people of opposite sexes to have conversations and have friendships with each other.
It's the only way to develop strength within the
strengthen, because again, if you only weaken yourself,
you have
you have to push against. It's just like resistance training. It's hard to resistance train, but that resistance train is actually strengthening you.
Because we don't do physically demanding things all day long.
All day long, that presses those certain muscles that need that. If we could just do it in walking, then we wouldn't do strength training. But strength training is the resistance that we need to build. And that's what you're saying is we are getting, as a whole, weaker. Instant gratification is a big part of it. But then what we're allowing our eyes and atmospheres to be in. So I don't know how many more of these that we'll have that we're together, because he'll be going to the DR in June.
June 5th,
yeah. But in the meantime, thank you all for your thank you for being so graceful and allowing me to feel comfortable jumping on here and openly sharing about this, because you guys, it's a big deal that there's no judgment coming from you, and I really appreciate it. I truly like Devin, we like to use our struggles and failures in the past to actually help people. It is not to glorify ourselves or lift ourselves up or to grab attention. It's truly, if we've walked the walk of our struggles we have, we're going to show you how to get through it on the other side and cause less pain to yourself than we have already subjected to ourselves. So we're just here coming from a place of and thank you guys for your grace.
Thank you for sharing and being open to talk about it. Because again, it's really I love the avoidance of pain, but it's really convert doing painful things that make us stronger.
Yes, it makes me stronger every time I talk about my addiction and or my past life as an exotic dancer, because it solidifies that I confidently know who God has created me to be and what my path is moving forward. If I go back to my old ways, that is living in silence, in shame and guilt, not talking about it, and that bred such unhealthy grounds for me that I had to get honest with myself. And once I started publicly sharing the struggles I've gone through, I've had so many breakthroughs myself that like it's just solidifying the direction my life is going. And I think the same for you is like you heading off to the Dominican Republic is the next step of what God has planned for you and your family. And the amount of life-changing things that you guys are going to be doing while you're there is mind-blowing, and I can't wait to see where you guys head the next 10, 20 years.
Lots of beautiful women in bikinis all around me. That's all I want.
And then he's going to go home and he's going to be like, I got the hottest of them all, Chelsea! I love your openness and willingness to say, hey, like, I'm in the Dominican Republic and there's like very little clothing on these women, but you have a beautiful woman at home that you love and adore, and that is healthy. He doesn't need to shield his eyes from the rest of the stuff. If you can't be around women in swimsuits, that might be another conversation topic.
and maybe we'll hit on maybe we'll bring Chelsea in one of these later about, because really what Chelsea has is the ability to, she said she's going to write a book. It would be How to Train an Asshole. And that's an important part of it too. She did write the outro of the book, but she hasn't quite stepped up to the book. That's a really important book. The person that holds me to a standard.
I am totally buying that one too. I love Chelsea. I think we should do a group one.
Right?
Yeah.
See how uncomfortable she gets.
Oh, I love it. We're just like it, and then she'd be like bright red face.
Start kicking me underneath the table.
Don't go there. Don't go there.
So are you up to doing this next Friday still?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yeah. If you guys have any, you can feel free to message or comment below any conversation pieces that you would like us to dive into, from selling drugs to growing drugs to ingesting drugs to breaking the law. Let's talk about it. Okay, all of it. Okay, thank you again.
Thank you.